Paid off in the distance. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad you could make it to Movement for Little Bodies. And today we're going to do little bodies and big bodies. So, moving right along, we don't want to waste much time because your time is valuable. My time is valuable, especially on a Saturday. So, here we go. Let's get going. My name is Terry Davis, and I'm from the Utah State Board of Education. I am the physical education specialist. Um, and so right now, what's so exciting is we are getting ready to rewrite the physical education standards, and we will have standards reaching clear down into pre-K. So that's really exciting for us, and I'm sure it's going to be exciting for you. So we're going to talk about um, little bodies and the little bodies need lots of movement for professionals. And by the way, just so you know, little bodies are supposed to move every 10 minutes. And I'm sure you're going to think, oh my gosh, every 10 minutes? How are we going to do that? Well, I will give you the ways of doing that, but keep in mind that those little bodies need to move. Otherwise, you will be dealing with behavior issues. So here we go. Um, the things that we're going to learn today is why incorporate movement into your classroom, and then how to incorporate movement into your classroom. So when we're talking movement, there's lots of different kinds. We're talking locomotor, balance, hopping. Now remember, hopping is on one foot, so make sure that you use, when you're teaching students, the right terminologies. And jumping is on using 2 feet. And then you have galloping, sliding, running, leaping, and then also we have ball skills, which are kicking and dribbling, hitting, throwing, overhand and underhand, and catching. Okay, so if you have been sitting all day, you have come to the movement section. So here we go. We're going to see if we can play this, and I want you to dance right along. Hopefully you all have sound. But we are going to dance a little bit of Moana. So I'm going to speed this up. Here we go. Okay, get up out of your chair and let's do this together. And let's move a little bit because we all need a little bit. And let's enjoy the music. We know this song. This is a fun one that you could use with your preschool. They would know this music. Every time down the storm is not out is in a never rain. Hey. All right. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of refreshment, especially if you've been sitting for the last couple of days. So here we go. We're going to take a deep dive into why we need to have movement. So there's trends in neuroscience and education. The magazine investigated, or the research body investigated movement breaks and self-regulation in preschoolers. The study included 72 preschoolers who completed a quantity estimation task before, following, and 1 week after engaging in either a 20-minute physical activity or a sedentary lesson. To determine the benefits of the movement breaks, heart rate, pedometer, step counts, and off-task behavior was recorded. The results of the study indicated physical activity did not interfere with learning, so taking the break didn't interfere with learning. 58% reduction in off-task behavior following a physically active lesson, so behavior went down, and a 1,900% increase in steps during the physical activity lesson. The researchers concluded that providing physically active lessons instead of sitting for extended periods of time in early childhood classrooms reduces sedentary behavior and improves self-regulation while not interfering with learning. So you have to remember that, taking these movement breaks, taking simple movement breaks, and it could be for 2 minutes, it could be for 30 seconds. It doesn't interfere with learning. And there's so many educators that think, I just don't have the time to do it. You actually do have the time to do it because it won't interfere with learning of the other subjects. Okay, so more than 1/3 of US children are overweight or obese. And this came from the Pediatric Physical Therapy Association in a study that they did. And I'm sure that you have kids in your class who fit into this category. I'm sure that you have multiple kids that fit into this category. And so, what are you going to do about it? And that makes a big difference. Oh, shoot, you couldn't hear the music for the video. I'm sorry. Dang it. Okay, I apologize. Um, okay, so brain parts. The part of the brain that processes movement is the same part that processes things like learning. So, in fact, according to Stephen Smith, the part of the brain that lights up when a child's move is the same part of the brain that lights up when they read or work on math. So, in essence, when you light up that part of the brain, it also helps with learning and it gets learning going and the electrons start firing. So if you look at this, the you have the motor cortex in the frontal lobe. You have somatosensory cortex is right there, and that also has to do with sensory. Okay, so addressing the brain architecture responsible for self-regulation requires an intervention that explicitly targets this neurocognitive basis. Now, rhythmic movement is an ideal medium due to the way the human brain perceives beat in music and responds with coordination of the auditory and motor systems, which in turn are linked to cognitive control capabilities. So, one idea about rhythmic movement is using rhythm sticks. So, like I have some rhythm sticks, they were pretty cheap off of Amazon, but I put on like a song on a speaker, and like I'll use a speaker, a simple speaker, portable speaker that, you can set around. But then the rhythm sticks will help students practice rhythm, also practice movement, and you can use it for crossing midline like this on shoulders, knees, on the sides, on doing it on the head. So they practice control, but also rhythmic movement to stimulate learning. Rhythm sticks is a quick, easy movement that is really great, and kids love tapping. Remember, when you hand out these sticks, you have to remind the students that they only tap themselves and the floor or their desk or table. They don't get to tap another student. Okay, moving on. Beyond self-regulation, evidence also suggests that rhythm and movement can support school readiness skills, including early numeracy. So when you're practicing rhythm, counting is another great thing to apply to it, and also literacy skills. So if you want students to pick up on literacy and pick up on math and numeracy, counting, um, using rhythm and movement can support this. For example, music training focused on improving children's beat synchronization skills by incorporating percussive instruments and rhythmic coordinated dancing, significantly improved children's reading accuracy. So if you were to take like a rhythmic break to do rhythm sticks, or I also have used juggling scarves for throwing and catching and dancing. It also significantly improves children's reading skills. Um, Juggling scarves are really awesome because they don't hurt anybody. They don't hurt anything in the classroom. You can do it in the classroom. You can do it in the gym. You can do scarves in the hallways. So if you have to move environments, they're very transportable. Same with rhythm sticks. And the other thing about scarves is that they float slowly, so students have a chance to catch them. So if you were to throw a scarf up in the air, and you would start with one scarf per student, you would give them one, and you would practice throwing it up, letting it float down, and then they catch it, or they catch it with two hands or one hand. Um, that would that would help when it came to reading. So thinking about when you're scheduling your day, if you schedule some kind of rhythmic movement before you schedule reading, that would be awesome to have that targeted scheduling so that you have movement in place and you stimulate the brain before you go into reading. So let's take a look at this next one slide. When we talk about movement, there's all different kinds of things that we can use and that benefits from movement. We have muscle strengthening. We have learning the locomotor skills. Preschool is a great place for students to start learning their locomotor skills because according to the standards, by kindergarten first and second grade, they need to have learned all those locomotor skills, such as hopping, jumping, leaping, running, galloping, skipping. Okay. The other thing they learn is emotional regulation. So the movement helps with their emotions. They may be super excited and it helps them to bring down their emotions. Or you may have a student that's not paying attention that needs to come back to homeostasis, and movement will help them come back to homeostasis. It will help social skills, in turn taking, students learning how to win and how to lose appropriately, and also how to share. So if you are doing rhythm sticks, we also include in rhythm sticks, we also including changing and handing a partner one, and they take their partners. And then they switch and change colors all the time, because you know those kids that they've got to have red and they don't want to let go of their red rhythm stick or their purple rhythm stick or their color, whatever it is. It teaches them it's okay to share that color or to share that item. With motor learning, they also learn rhythm. So, in not just rhythm sticks, but there's other forms of movement that have rhythm. So, when you think about it, skipping, it has a rhythm to it. Step, hop, step, hop, step. And then you have bone strengthening. So when you're talking about movement, when you are doing things such as jumping, the compression on the bones is vitally important for bone strengthening. And then we have learning ball skills. So when you're taking like a movement break, you can do such things as catching. You can do throwing overhand, throwing underhand, and those types of things. You don't have to be in a gym to be able to do that. You could use yarn balls, koosh balls, balled up socks to learn overhand throwing, underhand throwing, throwing at a target. You could draw a target on your whiteboard, have students aim for that target, but make sure if you are reviewing those skills that you review them appropriately and correctly. So, like overhand throwing, underhand throwing, make sure that they're stepping with their opposite foot when they throw or when they roll. So, if they're rolling a ball, they need to be stepping with their opposite foot. I've run into so many students at the high school level when we're going to do bowling and we're at the bowling alley and I see them stepping with their same foot as the hand that they're using to roll the ball. And it's a crime that they've gone all those years stepping wrong, because that means that their accuracy is all off. That stepping with the correct foot is really important for accuracy, but also important for power. So make sure if you're teaching the ball skills or you're practicing ball skills, make sure that you practice with the correct form. And you can Google the correct form or you can look it up. It also has the correct form on the Peabody Developmental Test of Motor Skills. Or I also have the TGMD Test of Motor Skills. So you can look up the form on there if you need to review the form, or just reach out to your PE teacher at your school and talk to them about what the correct form is. And hopefully they are a certified teacher and they know what they're talking about, so they aren't teaching you the wrong things. So make sure you double check with someone that knows what knows what they're teaching. The other thing about movement is it increases creativity. So when you hand students scarves and you put on some music, it's very exciting to see what students will do with the scarves that they have. Some will pretend like they're animals, some will dance like ballerinas, and that's really an exciting thing. Okay, so on to the next slide. Examples of physical activities for children. Here are some examples. So, in physical activity guidelines for Americans, we have this resource from the Department of Health and Human Services. Physical activities for Americans, we have team building, we have self-esteem, winning and losing. How many of your students have never lost a game because their parents have always allowed them to win all the time? Well, I was one of those mean parents where I let my kids win some and I let them lose some because I couldn't have them win all the time. Uh how would they be able to cope in life if they thought that they needed to win all the time? So there we go. And sportsmanship. So after we play a game, there is a time that we practice sportsmanship. There's an opportunity there. We give high fives. We tell the other team, thank you for playing with us. Thank you for participating. Um, and the other ones, great job on your win. So, sportsmanship is awesome and it needs to be learned at an early age, not waiting until people are adults and they're at their child's baseball game and then they're getting thrown out for poor sportsmanship being an adult. Um, the next one is rhythm. We've talked about rhythm. And then we go on values. So honesty, friendship, um, cooperation, uh, honesty in following the rules of the game. We talk about that in PE all the time, but we also should talk about that at recess. And if you're doing an activity in your classroom where you want people to follow the rules of the game, and talk about friendship, how friends treat each other. The other big one, to go back to the obesity issue, is that any of this movement burns calories. It doesn't have to be high impact. It can be low impact. So one example of that is Tai Chi. Tai Chi is a low impact activity, but it has so many benefits. And the older I get, the more I like Tai Chi. You could do Tai Chi in your classroom because the students don't have to move around a lot, but that's one good example of an activity that you could do that has slow movement, but you do muscle strengthening, you do focus, and also like a meditation type activity. So the type of physical activity we're going to look at is muscle strengthening. So those types of activities could be games such as tug of war, climbing on the playground equipment. So the ladders and the rock walls on the playground have great value because students are practicing using and strengthening their muscles. We had a student that I worked with one time at a preschool that had actually never stepped on a playground before. I mean, a play structure. So our therapy, or I'm not a therapist, but our adapted PE services was teaching that student how to get on a playground, how to navigate a playground. What I found, and this was only just a few years ago, that we were finding more and more kids that didn't get on play structures and didn't play on play structures. So, what would be great for you to do with your class is to have a movement time where students learn how to navigate the playground and you use the playground like an obstacle course where students have to go a certain pathway to get through the obstacle course. Playgrounds many times are designed to strengthen arms and legs and core. So that's a lot of the reasons why they put the various toys on the playground. If we want to look at bone strengthening, we go back to hopping and skipping and jumping. Any kind of that compression on the joint is bone strengthening. Running and gymnastics. We've gotten away from gymnastics just because of the liability issue. But when you look at running, there's a certain amount of compression on the joints that running affords that walking doesn't. So it's good to run. When I worked at a school in Washington State, there were many days that were rainy and the students couldn't go outside. So what I did was I negotiated with the principal about having a running track in the hallway in the building. So we taped off a lane in the hallway where everyone knew that that was the running path. So when we had a rainy day or a rainy day recess, students can choose if they wanted to go out and run in the running lane in the hallway. That's an idea that you can do when the weather is bad. That concept should probably be coordinated with other people in your building and with your administration, but always having quiet in the hallway is not necessarily good for students, but having times where students can use the space and have movement and activity can be a benefit for students. So, but you do need to coordinate that with your administration. Okay, now we're going to go to type of examples of physical activities for children. Another type, so moderate intensity aerobic. So now you're looking at games and playing on the playground. Games such as tag or follow the leader, playing on a playground, tricycle or bicycle riding. I want to stop right there and talk about that. Back east, there's a trend right now to put in traffic gardens. A traffic garden is where students can bring their bikes, their scooters, um, their trikes to school, and they have a designated painted roads and street signs so students can practice how to use streets safely. And I find that the tricycle and bicycle riding or scooter riding would be awesome. Nowadays, we have all the electric bikes and trikes and scooters, and we're finding, and in fact, the Department of Transportation has been telling me to get out information that they sent me about how to properly and where to properly ride their motorized vehicles. And so trikes and bikes and scooters would help students, if you had a traffic garden at your school, to know and to be able to practice the rules of the road. And speaking of that, let's see, the Department of Outdoor Rec has an infrastructure grant, and also the Department of Transportation has a grant that will help pay for a traffic garden if you're interested in putting that into your school. Okay, now moderate intensity aerobic. Continuing down the list, walking, running, skipping, jumping, dancing, swimming, playing games that require catching, throwing, and kicking. So you think about those games such as ultimate frisbee, throwing. It could be a throwing game. The game that I really like is called Not in My Backyard. You take a simple rope like this or a string, and you string it across the middle, and you divide your class into two teams. And then you take all the soft things like koosh balls, yarn balls, balled up socks, and you dump them out in the middle. And when you say go, all the students are supposed to clean up their side of the yard. So their side of the roped off area. And you time it for a certain amount of time until you say stop throwing. And then the students go pick up all of the things that are in their yard and then they can count. So this includes numeracy. They can count how many items they have. And you can do that activity multiple times. Students love it. It's not a quiet activity because they're running around, picking up, throwing balls. The only real rule is that they cannot step over the line into someone else's yard. So it's a really simple game that's lots of fun. And then you can remind students, remember the form of throwing, step with your other foot. And then they also have some moderate intensity aerobic activity. If you go for a long time, so if you set your timer for a long time, it ends up being a high intensity aerobic activity. Or if you do it in a space that's large and the students have to run around a lot to get to the balls in their yard, that provides more intense aerobic activity. So if we go over to physical intensity aerobic, that game could be included into that vigorous intensity category. Or if you shorten up the game time, it could be a moderate activity. Games such as tag and follow the leader, tag ends up being a high intensity aerobic activity because a lot of times the students are running, trying to either tag or get away from the person that is doing the tagging. Playing on a playground could be vigorous. Bike riding could be vigorous. So basically all the same things that are in the moderate intensity category could be vigorous intensity, depending on how long and how fast you're going. So I'm going to talk about this other area, this next section, about why we need to have and why we need to do movement in your classroom. Every educator is required to do child find. So child find requires educators to look for students who might qualify for special education services or 504 services. And those services could be something like adapted PE. So what you'll do, there is this test, the PDMS, which is the P-body. It's a test for early childhood motor skills. It has a section in there on fine motor and also on gross motor. And I have the third edition, but most of the editions are basically the same. You could use it for reference. You could probably get one of these from the occupational therapist at your school, the physical therapist, or if you have an adapted PE teacher, they would probably have one of these that they could give you to have as a reference. The areas in the test on gross motor, fine motor. It also tests on body control, so balance, and body transport, which is a locomotor skill. It's moving from one place to another. And then also the object control skills, which is ball skills. Um, and I find this test to be very reliant, and it is a standardized test. So occupational therapists, physical therapists, and adapted PE teachers can use this test for early childhood because it goes clear down into, a certain amount of months. Let me look here. It goes down into 6 to 10 months So really early um, in a child's life. And it has all of those skills that could give you a good idea, would a student qualify for services if they can't do some of these skills? I suggest that everyone have one of these on hand to look at what are the expectations for, say, 3, 4, and 5-year olds for that age group. Okay, how does movement and physical activity pertain to my preschool? So, because you're a preschool teacher, um, you're required to do child find. So, also we have the core standards for ages 3 through 5, and physical education. There's a section on that. Talks about motor skills and movement. So gross motor, large motor skills, such as the locomotor, the non-locomotor, such as balancing on one foot, moving a body part in isolation, so basically imitation, and then bending, twisting, and turning. So when we're talking about imitation, the whole head, shoulders, knees, and toes, for a student to be touching that and following those imitation movements, you can do that, or you can do just random ones like I'm going to have this hand up and this hand straight forward. Can students imitate what you're doing? And can you switch those and have a student imitate and do that way? Or isolate a body part where they can lift one leg without lifting another. Any kind of that imitation is really great, and that could be a quick movement break and easy for you to just say, okay, everybody stand up. We're going to play Simon Says. And Simon says, do this, um, do this, or do this, or one hand up and switch to the other hand. So that would be great. And then, of course, the fine motor. So those are small motor skills, which is usually handwriting, doing up a coat, tying shoes, and that kind of stuff. Okay. Can you do movement at all times? Yes, you can. So when we're talking about movement all times, what about sitting on the carpet? Instead of sitting in crisscross applesauce, you might have to spread students out a little bit. But then if they're sitting in an L position, so with their legs straight out in front of them and not leaning back on their hands, but having their hands in their lap, I encourage all of you to try that because that position strengthens your core. There's many students who can't sit in the L position because they've been sitting in a chair too long or sitting on a couch. When I was doing testing for adaptive PE, 3/4 of the kids could not put their legs straight out in an L position. They had to sit with their knees bent. So that's something that you as preschool teachers could really help PE teachers and help students, is just by paying attention to when you're sitting, sit in a different position and change it up a little bit. We also need to watch for students who are slouch sitting, so their hands are behind them, they're leaning back on their hands. This does not help core. They're locking their elbows, locking their shoulders, and sitting upright, even in crisscross, with their hands in their lap, helps their core stay strong. Okay, now let's look at transition times when you're going from one place to another. If you're going from one place to another, you can do hopping, skipping, jumping, leaping, and you could throw out a balance beam. When I say throw out a balance beam, you can use a lot of various things for a balance beam. It doesn't have to be a real balance beam. I was cheap, so I had my husband go out and buy a 2x4, and we cut it into pieces because I didn't want to have to store or carry around a 2x4 all over the place. So we cut it into pieces. We sanded it down, and I would throw the blocks down in different types of patterns for students to practice walking on. The balance beam, some days I would do it straight. Some days I would offset and turn the blocks. Some days I would leave a space in between, so they had to take a little bit larger step to get over that space and onto the block. With that, the balance beam really helps balance, but it also helps motor coordination. So they have to watch, especially if you leave a gap in between the balance beam blocks, they have to watch where they're stepping. They just can't be looking around the room, watching their peers. They got to be looking down and focusing on that. So just transition times also with hopping, skipping, jumping, leaping. If you need to move from one place to another quickly, skipping is a great way to go. And students are practicing rhythm. So, take advantage of the time. When I say take advantage of the time, you don't have very much time with your students in overall, and you have so much to accomplish in that time. Pack in movement periods whenever you can. You may not have a designated PE time. This would be vitally important for um, movement and for physical activity to do it when you have transition times and do movement during your lessons. So with reading, does reading have to be sitting at a table? Could it be standing? Could it be laying on the floor? So changing up those positions, learning positions, makes a difference in learning also. It stimulates the brain. You can do the same thing with writing. You could lay on your stomach with writing. And actually, if students lay on their stomach, they're tightening their core when they're also writing, and they're tightening their lower back muscles. You should try it sometime. You would be surprised at what it does for you. And that's just a simple thing of adjusting the what you're doing and how you're doing it. Some of you may have alternative seating. So you may have a tea stool, you may have a yoga ball. Right now, I'm standing at my standing desk. So instead of sitting all the time, I am standing, and that helps to keep me really on my toes, but also stimulates my brain. It also helps with strengthening with muscles. Okay, indoor recess. Um, no screens. I want to encourage you to try to get away from screens. Screens are good once in a while as an emergency thing, but I've seen a lot of teachers that for indoor recess, they resort to putting on, um, putting a dance on a screen and having students just do a dance. Or they could choose to use an iPad for something. Let's try to get away from screens and let's really get into play movement and working together and playing games and doing songs. We talked about practicing imitation movements. I put on the presentation some links for movement songs if you don't have these. Some of these I've used 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but they're still good in using them today. Um, Also, you can find lots of your own, but the movement songs are really great to have kids practice rhythm, but also be creative. Okay, so movement and rhythm. Movement and rhythm supports and enhances self-regulation in the following areas: emotional regulation, which is their emotions, executive function, which is following the rules, and then attentional regulation, which is paying attention and optimizing learning. So there's all kinds of things that you can do. You can do clapping games, you can rhythm sticks, you can do marching and locomotor skill practice, and you can do balance practice. Okay. And now I'm going to show you this quick little video that I found that's pretty awesome. It's Tai Chi for kids, and I think your students would really like it. So you probably can't get the sound. Let me see if I can make this large. And if you want to, you could follow along doing it too. I just want to give you a little sample of that. I thought it was really fun. The video's choppy and having troubles. It's breaking up. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have to go back to the presentation. I will share it with you in the chat. Let's see if I can get that. There's the presentation in the chat, and you can refer back to it later. Okay. So now I want to talk to you really quick. We have just a few minutes left. I want to talk to you about calm time. So movement, I've found is really great, but also having a calm time teaches uh, students to relax, be calm, and to rest. So when you have a calm time, you can turn down the lights, you can listen to soft music. Um, and why do you need a calm time? Because students need to unwind too. They need to de-stress, they need to slow down, they need to learn how to regulate stimulation and stress. They need to lower their heart rate. Um, they need less joint pressure at times and to reduce anxiety. Also, I've noticed that preschool teachers also need a calm down time because your class can be so busy. And especially around the holidays, you may find that students are getting ramped up and they get so worked up. Um, I think sometimes parents forget that students and their kids need a calm down time to help them regulate all the excitement, all the stress around them. Um, there were times in when I would do PE lessons where I planned the calm down time for the last 5 minutes of the PE time, just to bring the students down, just to give myself a break between PE classes and having that high intensity all the time. You might want to consider putting a calm down time and scheduling that in to your class schedule. It doesn't have to be a long time. It could be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. And then if you notice that your students need it more, you can add more calm times throughout the day, short periods, you can make them long. You can also have those calm down times be a meditation where you put on soft music, you lower the lights, but you can talk softly to your students because the calm down time doesn't necessarily have to be silent time. It may be silent time for students, but it might be a time where you talk to your students about breathing and about how to deal with excitement and things like that. And to take a deep breath and to lower their shoulders. Calm time, calm time is as valuable as movement time. And you'll find that when you start getting stressed, your students will start getting stressed, and then there could be behaviors that start happening along with that. Calm down time also helps bring behaviors down and it helps manage behaviors. So that's a super important one that I would suggest that you try. So here are a couple of resources that I added, that I'd like to add. One I shared a couple of years ago when I was presenting with Angeline about movement, Terry's movement menu for classroom or behavior use. So that QR code or that link should help you with um, different things that you could do for movement. It's a great menu to give you ideas, hang up, and then you could just refer to that on the fly. Also, I wanted to give you the link for the Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds booklet. We just revised it, working with the Department of Health and Human Services and partnering with them. We revised that booklet, and it gives really simple games that you can play with your students in the classroom. And, those are games that you can pick, 4 or 5 and play them over and over and over again. Students love those games. So, and then this is the last slide. Here's my contact information. So if you have any questions, you can contact me on the USBE PE website. We have other resources. And then there's the link for the best practices for recess guidebook. And it will give you information about recess in there. So hopefully, you enjoyed this presentation. Hopefully you got some ideas out of it. If you want more ideas for preschool activities, contact me and I can give you a bunch more. It's been a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and I know that you gave up your valuable time, and hopefully this presentation will help you uh, bring down the behaviors in your classroom, but also help students with their fitness, with their strength, and with their bone structure. And also with Child Find, you can find students that may need additional adapted PE services or physical therapy services or something like that. So there you go. Have a happy weekend, everybody. Oh, Katrina said the resources will be available in the shared Google Drive resources folder. And she gave the link for that. So there you go. Sorry about the video stuff not working very well. Go back and try it. Those are really fun videos that I think your students will like too. I like the Moana one, but I did like the Tai Chi one too. So that one was great.
Hi, Terry. Sorry, I came for the last half of yours, but just want to check in. How did it go?
I felt like it was good, except for I could not figure out when I played the video, I could not figure out the sound. I'm like,
Yeah,
how to do that.
yeah. I mean, yeah. When you have to back all the way out of sharing your screen,
Oh,
and
you do?
yeah, and then when you share your screen, there's like a little menu on the right side that says
Oh,
share sound.
advanced sharing options.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not giving me the option.
Oh, it should
Let's
be
see.
so you not the advanced sharing
Share
option. So
screen.
like share as if you're gonna, yeah, share your screen. And then you see how it brings up all the different screens you could
Oh, share sound.
share sound.
Crap.
Yeah,
Oh, dang it.
that's all right.
Bummer.
It
I
it
know.
like gets me every single time.
Dang. I knew Jody knew it, but I'm like, I can't remember where she did that. Shoot. Well,
Oh,
hopefully people enjoyed it.
it looked like they did. Yeah.
I'm trying, it's really hard to tell. Like I can't see anybody's face, so